Hi there. So in this exercise, we're going to be looking at contour drawing. So contour drawing is an exercise that's recommended in lots of books on learning how to draw. In particular, this one I like, Learning to Draw by Robert Cowperlis, who I think taught in New York. So this relates to what we were saying about learning to look. Okay, so I mentioned in my last sort of lesson that when you're starting to draw, your main problem is when you're observing subjects, we all have a tendency not to look enough. Okay, if you see me drawing, you might try and see that I continually try and look at the subject, and then I do this thing, I've just noticed it watching back some of the videos, where I pull back and try to look. The reason you pull your head back is because you're trying to take in your drawing as a whole, okay? Well, when you get too focused on detail, you tend to lose the bigger picture, okay? So contour drawing is the outline of an object. And what contour drawing does in this exercise is you start to look at outline and then you try to start drawing without looking at your page, okay? So if our initial problem is that we don't look at our subject enough, we completely reverse that by not looking at our drawing at all. We put all our attention on our subject and we draw. Now the result can often be what you might call a bad drawing. So I'm just going to read a little bit from this book, Robert Cowperlis book. So again, I'll put the link below. Where is it? There we go. I like the way he describes this contour drawing exercise. It's an exercise, incidentally, that I do mention it in a lot of when I do life drawing. We tend to do some exercises on contour drawing, but it's one of those exercises, it requires a lot of concentration and can make people feel very uncomfortable. So remember, we talked a little bit about in the lesson about motivation, is that you're trying to stretch yourself. And what that means is you're trying to draw differently than you might normally be inclined to draw. So if left to your own devices, if you draw and draw and draw, okay, you probably will get better. But if you do things that push you outside your comfort zone, if you stretch yourself every now and again, that's where you're going to start to see more improvement. And this exercise is a tried and tested exercise for getting improvements in your observational skills. So he starts off, he says, though the type of drawing you start with is certainly a matter of personal preference, your preference or your instructor's, it's been my experience that contour drawing often proves the most rewarding. Despite the fact that contour drawing requires a great deal of concentration and application, even the most untutored beginner can achieve some degree of success and thereby develop a modicum of confidence in his or her ability to draw. Okay, so that's just a little note of recommendation in this book. So I would say you might find this exercise uncomfortable, but stick with it and I'm sure you're going to get some good results. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my hand, and which is as good a subject as any. So when you're doing contour drawing, it's better to pick organic forms. So these are forms that have some sort of, we don't want to just be drawing books and things with straight edges. We want things that have got sort of, wiggly lines and that sort of thing. So your hand is a good subject for blind contour drawing. Okay, now I've tried to position my camera in such a way that you might be able to see me looking at my hand. And what I'm going to do is, if you watch my eyes, okay, I'm going to try to look at my hand and not look at my drawing. So I'm drawing on my tablet here. So it's not my usual sort of, normally I'd be drawing on paper. So it's not the usual setup. So I tried to position my hand. Now in an ideal world, what you would do is you'd have your page and you would sort of rotate your body to remove any tendency to look at your drawing, okay? But in this case, I'm just going to hold my hand out here. I'm just going to start. So you pick a place to start and then you put your pen or your pencil down on a spot on the page. And then what you do is you very slowly, now I did look there just to make sure it was creating a line, so I'm gonna remove that just to make sure, so we know it's working now. So I'm gonna try not to look. This is what we're trying to do. So So as the eye moves along the contour, you move your pencil. You'll see that I'm looking, so this is why it's very difficult to resist the temptation. And as I say, we want to look at the page, but we have to try to resist. So this is my fingernail on my thumb. And then you're really trying to notice every little undulation. So if the line's cut inwards, like with a wrinkle or something like that, then you can follow that line. You just move your eye, move your pencil, try to have them coordinated, and then start again. Okay, and so on. So there you can see I've drawn my thumb. Now you will notice that it's not a particularly good drawing, okay? So I'm going to do another one in a minute and I'll speed it up for you. I just wanted to explain the process. So you'll notice that when you're doing this, because you're not looking at your page, you will tend to distort the proportions. So that is perfectly natural, okay? Because what happens is when people do this, they'll look at their drawing and go, oh my God, you know, what an awful drawing I've done. But that's not really the point. The point is training yourself to link your eye movements, what's going on with your eyes and your hand to eye coordination. So eventually you should actually be able to, when you're drawing a subject, you should be able to draw so that you can at least draw some of the time without looking at your page, okay? And it might seem a bit daunting at first because you think, well, surely I would just get it wrong, but some amazing things happen. Sometimes you can get it more right doing it this way than when you do it in the normal way. Okay, so I'm just looking for this quote that he says about contour drawing. So yeah, this is good. He says, don't worry about good drawing. Okay, it's important to draw as though you mean it. Use a definite and confident line. It's impossible to feel the form with a sketchy line. Drawing with a sketchy line in this case is like tapping your finger along the form when you really need to caress the form with your pencil. Don't worry about distortion. If you follow the procedure I've outlined, which is very similar to what I've just said to you, a distorted form must result unless you're cheating. In fact, the lines that should meet will often not do so. But you needn't be worried about this problem, nor should you erase what seems like a mistake. It's nearly impossible to achieve correct proportions when drawing line by line as you do in contour drawing. Good drawings in the conventional sense are not the objective at this point. We're simply concerned with an exercise in seeing. Though good drawings are not the objective, I might add that students often produce some of their finest work during this early period. They achieve handsome results precisely because they're convinced that it's only an exercise. Thus they feel less self-conscious than when they consciously set out to make a good drawing. So I think that's really useful. So you engage with it as an exercise and you might do something of value. Okay, so what I'm suggesting for this exercise, the first one is I want you to do it for 5 minutes and do it completely blind, i.e. not looking at your page at all. So for the sake of the exercise, I will do one now and speed it up for you. So there's a blind contour drawing, and you'll see it illustrates some of the points that he made. So you can see that on the one hand, the proportions are off, I hope, but yeah, I don't think my fingers are quite as sort of fat as that. But you can also see that every mark that I've made here is a result of observation. It comes directly from observation. And you'll notice with that comes a quality of line that you won't get when you normally draw. So just to give you an example, if I just draw my finger like if I was perhaps normally drawing it. Okay, you can see that the line has a very different quality. With contour drawing, you're looking for this confident line, and all these little, say, little marks, little undulations, they are particularly characteristic of this form of drawing. So it's an incredibly effective form of exercise for learning how to look, how to keep looking at your subject. But when I do it and when you do it, try to be aware of the strong pull to look at your drawing, and also maybe to be a bit critical of your drawing afterwards. But then also have a look and see, well, you know, we should be able to see that there is something in it. Okay, there is something. There's something in the mark making. What I think is, even though there are the distortions, there's a truthfulness to it which actually our mind responds to. Okay, now in this book he actually goes on to recommend that you should practice this for about 100 hours. Now, in my experience, I've been lucky to get people to do this for about 5 minutes because it does make you feel uncomfortable. But I would say that if you can push through and do this exercise, you're going to get a massive reward. So what we'll do now is we take this exercise and then we're going to adapt it. So I'm going to draw my shoes that I looked at yesterday. But this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine blind contour drawing with looking. So this is how you gradually start to sort of balance it out. So with this exercise, what you do is, this is from drawing on the right side of the brain, is as long as you're actually drawing and making marks, you shouldn't be looking at the page. But what you can do is every now and again flick your eyes to the page, and that will sort of reorientate you. Okay, so it's a really effective compromise between the two. So I'll have a quick go at that and speed it up for you. Okay, so there's a what we call a semi-blind contour drawing. So I was quite pleased with that. You'll notice it has some of these characteristics of the line has a quality of deliberateness, concentration. It's not a sketchy line, and one you can tell if you're not looking. You can do things like count the number of shoelaces, or if you're drawing your hand, you know, have you missed a finger? These are always signs that people aren't looking when you miss things which are, you know, should be relatively sort of obvious. Okay, so it's a great exercise. I don't expect you to do 100 hours, but perhaps when you're doing your morning pages exercises from last week, or you get your sketchbook out, try to focus on this. I say pick organic forms and try to do a combination of completely blind contour drawing and then semi-blind contour drawing. And it's the sort of practice that it will support you at all levels of your development, whether as drawing or painting. So it's something you should return to again and again. It's like a musician practicing their scales. You're linking your hand-to-eye coordination, and the more you can do that, the more your lines and your marks are going to have a quality of rightness about them. So it's something you have to see, but you have to practice it, okay? Anyway, so I hope you find that useful, and look forward to seeing how you get on. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye.